The rifle cracked like thunder in the twilight hush of the Andalusian hills, shattering the fragile peace I'd clung to all day. My father's shout echoed off the jagged rocks, "Finley! God damn it, girl, watch your line." But it was Arya's hand on my shoulder, steady and warm, that yanked me back from the edge of panic. In that split second, as the echo faded and the wild boar we'd been tracking vanished into the scrub, I realized the real hunt wasn't for game at all. It was for the truth I'd buried deeper than any bullet could reach. We'd come to Spain chasing ghosts, or so my father liked to say. The old man, Harlan Whitaker, had dragged us across the Atlantic from our dusty ranch in Montana 3 years back, after Mom's cancer won the war she'd fought with the ferocity of a grizzly. "Europe'll fix us," he'd grumbled over packing crates stamped with faded American Eagle insignias, his voice gravelly from too many whiskeys and not enough sleep. Spain, with its sun-baked earth and endless olive groves, was supposed to be the cure, a fresh start in the expatriate bubble of Ronda, where Yankee retirees swapped stories of lost fortunes over tapas and too-sweet sangria. But fixes don't come cheap, and ours had cracked wide open the summer I turned 25. Finley Whitaker, that was me, the adopted wild card in the Whitaker deck. Picked up like a stray pup from a Seattle orphanage when I was 8, after my bio folks OD'd on the wrong cocktail of despair. Harlan and Mom had given me their name, their rough-hewn love, and a lifetime of feeling like I was auditioning for a role I could never quite nail. I was the tomboy with the sharp tongue and sharper aim, the one who could outride any ranch hand but flinched at Harlan's rare hugs. And then there was Arya. Arya Ruiz, half American, half Spanish firecracker, with a laugh that could coax blooms from drought-struck soil and eyes like the Mediterranean at storm. She'd washed into our lives 2 years ago, fresh off a Fulbright from UC Berkeley, teaching English Lit at the local Coleccio while moonlighting as a guide for ecotourists who wanted to connect with the real Spain. Harlan hired her for the hunting trips, our annual ritual of bonding through binoculars and buckshot, because she knew the backcountry like her own veins. "Smart as a whip, that one," he'd say, clapping her on the back a little too hard. "And easy on the eyes, Finn." I shot him a glare every time, heat crawling up my neck like I'd swallowed hot coals. Easy on the eyes. Understatement of the century. Arya was the kind of beautiful that snuck up on you, wavy dark hair that smelled like lavender and wild thyme, olive skin kissed golden by the relentless Iberian sun, and a way of tilting her head when she listened that made you feel like the only soul in a crowded finca. We'd been circling each other since day one, her teasing me about my cowgirl drawl, me challenging her to arm wrestle over plates of jamon. But it was more than flirtation. It was the quiet hours after the others crashed, when we'd sit on the porch of our rented cortijo, passing a bottle of Ribera del Duero and trading stories under a sky so star-packed it hurt to look at. This trip, though, the one that broke us open, was different. Harlan had insisted on it, his face gaunt under the brim of his Stetson, lines etched deeper since the divorce papers hit 6 months back. Mom's ghost lingered in every corner of the ranch house back home, but here in Spain, with its cathedrals and cork oaks, he'd hoped to outrun her. He'd brought me, of course, his little shadow, as he called me, and a ragtag crew, Uncle Ray, his grizzled brother from Billings, and a couple of expat buddies nursing midlife regrets. Arya was the glue, mapping trails through the Sierra de Grazalema where boar rooted like demons in the underbrush. The first day dawned brutal, heat mirage shimmering off the red dirt paths as we humped gear up from the jeep. My boots, scuffed Ariots that had seen more Montana snow than Spanish dust, kicked up clouds that clung to my jeans like accusations. "You good, Finn?" Arya asked, falling in step beside me, her pack slung low and easy. She was in her element, khaki shorts hugging her legs, a faded Berkeley tee damp at the shoulders, hair knotted back with a bandana that did nothing to hide the sweat-glistened curve of her neck. "Yeah," I lied, adjusting the strap of my Remington .308, the weight of familiar anchor. "Just wondering if Harlan's gonna regret inviting Ray. Man's got the stealth of a drunk elephant." She chuckled, low and throaty, the sound wrapping around me like smoke. "Your uncle's heart's in the right place. And Harlan. He needs this. Needs you." Her gaze flicked to mine, holding just a beat too long, and I felt that pull again, the one that started in my gut and twisted up to my throat. We danced around it for months, stolen glances over breakfast tortillas, her fingers brushing mine when she passed the sunscreen. Last spring, after a rain-soaked hike in the Alpujarras, we'd ended up in her tiny apartment in Ronda, wine loosening our tongues until she leaned in, breath warm against my ear, whispering, "What if we stopped pretending?" But I'd bolted, mumbling about family and timing, leaving her with a half-empty glass and a hurt I could taste like ash. Now, with the rifle's recoil still humming in my arms, I wondered if this trip would force the issue. We crested a ridge at noon, the valley below a patchwork of cork bark and wild lavender, and set up camp in a hollow ringed by Aleppo pines. Harlan barked orders, his voice cracking like dry timber, while Ray cracked open a cerveza and regaled us with tales of nom that grew taller with each sip. Arya and I pitched tent side by side, our shoulders bumping in the close work, her scent, earth and citrus, stirring something fierce in my chest. That night, as the fire popped and shadows danced on the canvas walls, the stories turned personal. Harlan, 3 whiskeys deep, fixed me with eyes gone misty. "You know, Finn, adopting you. Best damn decision I ever made. After your ma." He trailed off, staring into the flames. The divorce had gutted him. Clara, his high school sweetheart from Butte, had taken the house and half the herd, fleeing back to Montana with a realtor named Todd who'd promised her stability. Stability. As if love was a ledger. I swallowed hard, the fire's heat mirroring the burn in my throat. "I know, Dad. We're good." But we weren't. The adoption papers, yellowed in a drawer back home, whispered otherwise: biological parents deceased. No known relatives. I'd found them online last year, a grainy mugshot of a woman named Lena who looked nothing like me, her eyes hollowed by the needle. It fueled the doubt, the fear that I was just a placeholder, a fix for their empty nest. Arya caught my eye across the fire, her expression soft with understanding. Later, when the men snored in their bags, she slipped into my tent, the zippers rasped the only sound in the moonlit quiet. "Can't sleep," she murmured, settling beside me on the sleeping pad, our knees touching under the thin blanket. "Nope." I traced the seam of the nylon floor with my finger, avoiding her gaze. "Too much noise in my head." She shifted closer, her hand finding mine in the dark. "Talk to me, Finley. You've been carrying this trip like it's a cross." The words tumbled out then, halting at first, then in a rush, the adoption doubts, the way Harlan's grief made him distant, the ache of loving a family that wasn't blood but felt like it anyway. And woven through it all, unspoken until now, her. "Arya, that night in Ronda. I panicked because it scares me. Wanting you like this, when everything else is falling apart." Her thumb stroked my knuckles, a lifeline. "Finley Whitaker, you're the bravest person I know. Hunting boar with a hangover. That's nothing compared to letting someone in." She leaned in, forehead to mine, breath mingling. "I want you too. All of you, the doubts, the fire, the whole messy ranch girl heart." We didn't kiss, not yet. It was enough to lie there, tangled in whispers and what-ifs, the Sierra's night chorus our witness. That was the meaningful night, the one that cracked my armor. But dawn brought the Rayal storm. The second day dawned with a vengeance, the sun clawing over the Sierras like a predator scenting blood. We broke camp at first light, Harlan's face set in that stubborn jaw clench he got when regret gnawed too deep. "We'll bag that bastard boar today," he declared, slapping a fresh clip into his Winchester, his voice booming to drown out the unspoken. Ray nodded, nursing a hangover that turned his cheeks the color of overripe figs, while the expat duo, Tom and Javier, a mismatched pair of retirees with more stories than sense, muttered agreements over instant coffee. Arya and I hung back as the group fanned out along a dry riverbed, her shoulder brushing mine in the press of bodies. The air hummed with cicadas, thick and insistent, mirroring the buzz under my skin from last night's confessions. "You okay?" she whispered, green eyes searching mine like she could map the fault lines. I nodded, forcing a grin. "Ready to outshoot the old man. Race you to the ridge." Her laugh was a balm, light and unforced, as we jogged ahead, boots crunching gravel that sparkled like shattered glass. Up close, the landscape was a brutal beauty, thorny kermes oak clawing at the earth, wild thyme releasing bursts of scent with every step. Spain had that duality, paradise laced with peril, much like the pole between us. For the first time, I let myself imagine it, mornings in her ronda flat, her teaching me Castilian curses over paella, evenings tangled on the Cortijo porch, Harlan's gruff approval a distant echo. But fantasies shatter easy, especially when family's the hammer. We crested the ridge to find Harlan and Ray in a heated knot, voices low but laced with venom. Ain't right, Harl. Bringing her out here like she's one of us, when you know damn well. Ray's words cut off as we approached, but the damage lingered, a sour tang in the air. Harlan's eyes flicked to me, guilty and raw. Nothin', kiddo. Just jawin' about old times. But I wasn't a kid anymore, and lies had a way of sticking like burrs. The hunt dragged into midday, the boar elusive as mercy. We flushed a herd of fallow deer instead, antlers glinting like crowns in the dappled light, but Harlan waved us off, not the prize, his frustration mounting with the heat. By afternoon, tempers frayed, Tom griped about blisters, Javier about the Yankee obsession with killing for sport. Arya mediated with her easy charm, diffusing barbs with a quip in Spanglish that drew reluctant chuckles. Me. I kept my head down, rifle heavy as regret, the morning snippet replaying like a bad reel. We made camp early that evening in a shaded gulch, the Teju River murmuring nearby like a confessor. As dusk bled purple across the sky, Arya cornered me by the water's edge, skipping stones with a precision that spoke of childhood spent dodging expectations. Spill it, Finn. That look on your face since the ridge, it's like you swallowed a porcupine. I skipped a flat pebble, watching it kiss the surface 3 times before sinking. Overheard Ray talking to Dad about me. Like she's one of us, what the hell does that even mean? After all these years, am I still the outsider? Her stone skipped 4 times, a small victory. She straightened, turning to me with that unflinching gaze. Blood doesn't make family, Finley. You know that. Harlan chose you, every day, he chooses you. Ray's just. Ray. Bitter divorce, bad knees, worse opinions. But what if he's right? The words escaped, raw and jagged. What if I'm just a patch on their broken marriage? The kid they grabbed to forget the miscarriages, the fights over heirs. I'd never voiced it aloud, but here, with the river rushing judgment, it poured out, the therapy sessions back in Montana I'd bailed on, the late-night scrolls through ancestry sites that led nowhere but deeper holes. Arya stepped closer, the space between us electric. Then you're the strongest patch there is. And for what it's worth. You're my family too. Her hand cupped my cheek, thumb tracing the freckle I'd always hated, and in that touch, the world narrowed to her, the faint scar on her knuckle from a Berkeley protest, the way her lips parted like an invitation. We kissed then, slow and tentative, like testing the weight of a new rifle. Her mouth was soft, tasting of salt and unspoken promises, her fingers threading through my hair to pull me closer. It wasn't fire, it was hearth, warmth seeping into bones I'd thought frozen. When we broke apart, breathless, she rested her forehead against mine. No pretending anymore, okay? We're in this, whatever this becomes. I nodded, heart pounding like I'd run the ridge twice over. Deal. But betrayal doesn't announce itself with fanfare, it slithers in on whispers. That night, as the fire died to embers and the group huddled over a pot of arroz con conejo, Ray's voice carried from the shadows. Harlan, you gotta tell her. About Lena. The real story. My fork froze midway to my mouth, the world tilting. Harlan's response was a hiss. Not now, Ray. Trips for healing, not dredging graves. Lena. My bio mom's name, a specter I'd half buried. I slipped away before they noticed, Arya trailing with a worried frown. In the tent, I spilled it all over again, voice cracking. They're hiding something. And if it's about me, about why they really adopted. Show. She pulled me into her arms, our bodies fitting like puzzle pieces worn smooth by time. Tomorrow. We'll ask tomorrow. Tonight, just us. We held each other through the small hours, her heartbeat a steady drum against my chest, lulling me into a fragile sleep. Dawn cracked the illusion wide. It came with the gunshot, not ours. A poacher's blast, echoes sharp as betrayal, scattering birds from the canopy like confetti from a funeral. We scrambled out, rifles up, to find Harlan clutching his thigh, blood seeping dark through his chinos. Slipped on the bank, damn fool move, he grunted, face ashen. But Ray's eyes darted, guilty, and in the chaos of binding the wound with Arya's bandana, I caught the mutter, told you to watch your six, brother. After what Lena pulled. The jeep ride back to Rhonda was a blur of dust and jolts, Harlan pale against the seat, Arya at the wheel with white-knuckled grip. At the clinic, as the doctor stitched him up, I cornered Ray in the waiting room, the sterile fluorescent buzz amplifying my rage. Spit it out. What's Lena got to do with this, with me? He deflated, old man shoulders slumping. Fin your ma, Lena, she didn't OD clean. She was Harlan's half-sister's girl, tangled in some bad dead back in '98. Overdose was cover, truth is, she sold you to pay it off. Harlan bought you back, off the books, cash under table. To protect you. From her world. The room spun, tiles blurring. Bought. Like a heifer at auction. He. What? Ray's eyes watered. He loved you from the jump. But Clara. She never knew the full. Thought it was straight adoption. When she found out last year, dug up the papers, that's what broke them. She called you a transaction, said he was playing savior to atone for family sins. Transaction. The word hollowed me, echoing the doubts I'd nursed in silence. Arya found me there, slumped against the wall, and pulled me into the hall without a word, her embrace the only solid thing. Finley, breathe. This changes nothing, you're his daughter. Blood, ink, whatever. It's heart that counts. But heart scar easy. Harlan emerged bandaged, leaning on Javier, and met my eyes with a plea. Kiddo, we talk. Tonight. We did, in the Cortijo's courtyard, under a moon fat as forgiveness, Arya at my side like a sentinel. Harlan poured it all, the frantic calls from Seattle, the shady fixer who'd handed me over with a bottle and a blanket, the years of lies to shield me from shame. I was ashamed, Finn. Of my blood, of failing her ma. But you. You were redemption. Still are. Tears carved tracks down his weathered cheeks, and for the first time, I saw him, not the rancher, not the hunter, but a man frayed by love's sharp edges. I forgave him then, or started to, wrapping him in a hug that smelled of antiseptic and old leather. We're Whitakers, I whispered. We fix what's broke. Arya squeezed my hand, her presence a quiet vow. But the real fracture came later, in the firelight's afterglow, when Ray, emboldened by relief, muttered, "Good thing Arya's here to keep you straight, eh? Girl like you needs grounding." The air thickened, judgment hanging like storm clouds. Arya's grip tightened, but I pulled away, the weight of secrets compounding. That night, alone in my room, doubt crept back, could we build on ruins? Or was love just another transaction, fragile as a poacher's truce? The days blurred into a tense limbo after the shooting, Harlan hobbling around the Cortijo on crutches that clacked like accusations against the terracotta floors. Rhonda's expat circle buzzed with concern, potluck casseroles from the American Women's Club, awkward visits from Tom and Javier bearing contraband Twinkies and tales of botched hunts. But the real undercurrent was the unspoken, my heritage laid bare, a family ledger stained with ink and regret. Arya stayed close, her shifts at the collectio cut short, her presence a steady orbit against my spiraling doubts. We'd steal moments in the almond groves behind the house, where blossoms dusted the ground like forgotten confetti. One afternoon, as thunderheads gathered over the Serrania, she spread a blanket under a gnarled tree, unpacking a picnic of manchego and membrillo that tasted of home she'd never fully left. "Remember that first hike?" she asked, popping a grape between her lips, her voice light but eyes serious. "You tripped over a root, blamed the foreign dirt. I knew then, you were trouble worth chasing." I laughed, the sound rusty but real, leaning back against the trunk. "And you, Miss Ruiz, with your fancy degrees and olive oil empire dreams. What did you see in a Montana mutt?" Her smile softened, hand finding mine. "A mirror, maybe. My dad's the American import, stationed here in '75, fell for my mom over a bullfight. They fought like cats over whose way, but loved harder. Taught me family's not geography, it's gravity." She traced my palm, mapping lines I couldn't read. "You're my gravity, Finn, whatever Harlan's past, ours is clean slate." Clean slate. The words anchored me, even as guilt gnawed, Ray's jab about keeping straight, Harlan's sidelong glances when Arya and I shared a too-long touch. Spain's old-world charm hid progressive veins, pride in Malaga drew rainbows brighter than the Alhambra, but in our bubble, acceptance was a slow thaw. The climax brewed on the trips last night, a farewell hunt pared down to essentials, just Harlan, Arya, me, and the ghosts we'd exhume. With his leg braced, we opted for a gentle stalk along the Guadiaro River, shotguns swapped for binoculars, the boar forgotten in favor of egrets wheeling white against cobalt. The air hummed with late summer bees, wild fennel perfuming the breeze, and for stretches, it felt like absolution, Harlan pointing out ibex tracks with boyish glee, Arya sketching the scene in a battered notebook, her tongue between her teeth. But conflict festers in quiet. Midway, as we paused on a sun-warmed boulder, Harlan cleared his throat, crutches propped like sentries. "Finn, about Ray's mouth. He don't mean half what he says. But you and Arya," he rubbed his neck, eyes on the river's glint. "It's plain as day. And hell, kiddo, I worry. World's rough on folks like you too." Back home, the ranch hands still whisper about that couple in Billings got run out for holdin' hands. The words landed like buckshot, scattering my fragile peace. Arya's hand stilled on her sketchpad, her silence louder than protest. "Dad," I started, voice thin, "it's not." "No, hear me." He leaned forward, face earnest in the slanting light. "I ain't judgin'. Lord knows I got no room. But after Lena, after losin' your ma, I can't lose you too. To hate, to hurt." Tears welled, unashamed. "Just promise you'll fight smart. For each other." It was the closest he'd come to blessing, wrapped in paternal fear, and it cracked me open anew. Arya reached across, covering his gnarled hand with hers. "Senor Whitaker, we will. Finley's worth every scrap." Her eyes met mine, fierce and tender, and in that triad, father, lover, daughter, the betrayal of bloodlines dissolved into something human, flawed, fierce love. We didn't bag game that eve, but the return to camp carried a shift. Over a supper of grilled sardines in crusty pan, stories flowed unbarred, Harlan recounting the night he bought me back, not a shame but saga, a rogue tale of redemption with a diaper bag and a desperate drive. Ray, subdued by the drama, offered a gruff apology over his third Estrella, meant no harm, Finn family's family, blood or bourbon. As stars pricked the velvet sky, Arya and I slipped away to the riverbank, the waters murmur our confessional. "He loves you," she said, arms around my waist, chin on my shoulder. "Like I do." Love. The word hung, luminous. I turned, cupping her face, and kissed her under the moon's indifferent gaze, deeper this time, a vow sealed in salt and starlight. No rush, no fire, just us, weaving futures from frayed threads. The flight home to Montana was bittersweet, Harlan dozing in his window seat, crutches stowed like surrendered weapons. Arya stayed in Spain, roots run deep here, she said, but promised visits, a ring of citron on her thumb glinting like a beacon. "We'll make our own trips. No guns, just us. Months later, as snow blanketed the ranch and Harlan's limp faded to a memory, letters crossed the Atlantic, hers scented with time, mine inked with ranch grit. We built slow, a video call amid foaling season, her reading Lorca while I mucked stalls, a Christmas reunion in Ronda, where Harlan raised a toast to the daughters who saved me. It wasn't fairy tale, drama lingered in the what-ifs, the world's rough edges. Ray grumbled less, but prejudice's shadow stretched long. Yet in the meaningful night of that hunting trip, the confessions, the wound, the kiss, we'd forged something unbreakable, a family chosen, a love human in its hunger. Last spring, Arya came for good, her Fulbright traded for a teaching gig in Bozeman. We ride the fences together now, her on a borrowed mare, me pointing out elk trails with the same pride Harlan once did. He watches from the porch, a faint smile cracking his face, and sometimes, in the quiet, I catch him whispering to Mom's photo, "Told you, darlin'." Fixes come in all forms. And on the nights when doubts whisper old lies, Arya's hand in mine silences them. We're the adopted story, patched, scarred, whole. Changed forever, for the better.